What's your favorite yoga position?
I
Up
don't know. I've
dog.
never done yoga.
What did you say, John?
I said up dog.
What does that even mean?
God damn it. God damn it.
We were this close. This close.
What?
Don't worry about it.
No, I need to know. You can't do this to me, man. You can't do this to me. I can't.
Well,
I
let
need to know.
Well, let me put it to you another way, Natai. Would you rather eat a baby goat or a matter baby?
What's the matter, baby?
Nothing much, sugar. What's the matter with you? I can't believe that worked.
At least that one worked. I can't believe I couldn't get him with the up dog. He was like, what? I was like, oh, he's gonna say it.
I can't believe I fell for that. I can't believe I fell for that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host named Ty, and I'm doing so well right now with this fucking script. Join me tonight. We have everybody here. We have our... What are you, Chinoda, tonight?
The Rolladola.
Oh,
Rolladola? What does that mean?
what does the Rolladola mean?
I am the Rolladola. Don't worry about that.
Are you
We have
trying
the
to
Zara-
say road roller? Is that like
Yes.
a failed attempt? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get to the other guy. Let's see his bit. We have our Zara source material, John,
Hi.
and we have our senpai, Alex, on deck. What are you
Oh, hi
up
there. I'm just reading JoJo's Part 3.
What a funny coincidence.
to? Why don't you mention JoJo's Part 3, Alex? You know, I've seen the title of this episode, like right there under the yeah, you know. It's a. Are you part of JoJo? We're spoilering tonight.
Finally. We've been
Finally.
playing this for like 4 months and we finally did it.
What are you talking about? What? It's like, what do you mean? Like June was yesterday, right?
Yeah. Is that really
talking
when
about?
part 2 came out?
I think
Was
June or
it?
July of last year, I think.
Oh
Oh,
lord.
gee.
I think
Jesus.
something like that. Yeah. Yesterday
Someone
was
Definitely
tell us in
tomorrow.
the
It's-
comments. Someone tell us in the comments if we're wrong about that, but it feels like it was that long ago.
Yeah.
It does feel like that. So yeah, it's been a while. So today we'll talk about JoJo's Part 3. We'll talk about some other cool things that are related to it, and we'll go through it. So because JoJo's Part 3 is like the format of it is wildly different than everything that came before, so it's kind of I don't think it's as interesting to go for it like beat for beat as we did with the previous parts.
Well,
But
first of
we'll
all-
go along for it.
Part 3 is like
Long.
48 episodes?
It is
The
48
longest.
episodes across
Episodes
2
over
seasons.
2 full seasons.
Yeah. It's the longest of all of the JoJo's.
Yeah.
Actually,
Longest
I
of
don't know
the
how long
longest
Stone
anime.
Ocean is.
Stone Ocean is 39 episodes.
Oh wow, okay. Well, I thought part 3 was also the longest running part in the manga outside of, I think, JoJolion is longer, isn't it?
I mean,
JoJolion
In
is the
terms of-
longest.
in
Yeah.
terms of chapter count, I think Part 3 might be longer, but in terms of actual content, I think JoJolion is the longest.
JoJolion took the longest to write because it really
Yeah.
took a decade to get through, which is crazy.
Let's hope he
But
doesn't
yeah.
take that long with Part 9.
I mean, he'll outlive us all, right? I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
He still looks like he's
That's the
30
man.
years old,
Why?
so I mean,
This is literally just his autobiography. Like, this is not a
Yeah.
joke.
Bro, it's his Spotify playlist. Come on, we know that.
he was really ahead of his time because this is before Spotify. He was really ahead of his time.
So
Yeah,
it's
when
funny
was
because
part 3 even like written?
funny you mentioned that. The manga was released between March '89 and April '92.
Oh wow.
So about just over 3 years. And again, for context, like that's how old the manga is, right? Like it's the third part of the story, and it's the early '90s, which is crazy. Like the thing that always astonishes me about JoJo is how much of a trendsetter it was at the time, how it broke through some like new grounds in terms of like what shonen like manga could be.
Right,
And we'll
like,
get to that.
yeah.
There are so many references to JoJo's that come from Part 3 specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just part 3 alone.
And there's like shonen tropes that still persist today that originated in not just part 3, but JoJo's in particular, especially from this time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like it in terms of like the changes to its battle system, the evolution of like the supporting characters, how do they function in the story itself? It just, it's crazy to think how much of the things that he got right and how much of the things Araki like went for in this part slowly became the formula for JoJo, but also slowly became sort of a structure for manga in general, at least in shonen, right? It's crazy. So we will talk about the David production adaptation as always, but before we do that, there's another anime adaptation that we can talk about for just a bit. So like humor me
That
for a
actually got made.
That
because
actually got made.
We talked about the canceled JoJo's project for part 1.
For part 1.
But that never made it to like the finished stage. The OVA did.
And even more, it's funny how it worked. So in 1993, the first adaptation of Stardust Crusaders was released. It was made by studio APPP, and the OVA was pretty much like, so at the time they released 6 episodes. Now those 6 episodes covered the latter half of part 3, pretty much like the lead up to the fight with Dio. And something kind of cool about that might get you interested in checking it out, which I would recommend actually, is one of the episode, like some of its storyboarding and script writing and like some of the finished touches were not done by none other than Satoshi Kon.
Oh,
Same Satoshi Kon that we reviewed most of his movies. And also this very gig is what led to the producer at Madhouse, Maruyama, the legendary producer who Dan found in Mappa, to actually hire him and produce this feature movie, Perfect Blue. So yeah, without that adaptation, we wouldn't get Satoshi Kon movies, at least the way we got them, which is crazy.
So truly, without JoJo's, we wouldn't have Satoshi Kon.
Satoshi Kon is a JoJo's reference,
brain.
bro.
Yes.
oh my
What?
god, yeah, it is.
That's actually
yeah.
wild.
His entire like filmography is his JoJo's reference.
See, the only thing I knew about the OVA series was that this is the one where I see Dio driving a car.
Yes.
It's a great cut. I love that scene.
It's a phenomenal
It's like,
cut.
and I'm like, oh my god, what is going
that's
on
so-
here?
And he's
Only
mowing
thing
down
I've seen.
civilians.
Yeah, the only scene I know from the OVA is that. I'm like,
I would generally. So I wanted to check out some of the OVA before we recorded the episode, but like I didn't get around to it. But I would generally like the English dub of those OVAs from the clips I've seen is hilarious.
Is wildly hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I've seen it. I've seen the OVA, and let me tell you something.
What did you think of it?
I mean, compared to the David production one, there is no comparison. The David production one clears. But it is interesting because this was made so shortly after the manga finished.
That's right.
And there wasn't this massive, span of time between that and the anime adaptation. Technically, animation-wise, it's definitely a production of its time. It looks like it comes from the early 90s, and that's not exactly it's not exactly a compliment. It hasn't aged well.
dated, yeah.
From the bits I've seen, do like the color palettes that they use. Like it's very dark. It's shot it's very like darkly lit. Is that like something
Which
for
is
the entire?
a
review
criticism
of it?
I've heard of, especially JoJo's Part 3 adaptation from David Production, is that it's just too bright.
Is it though? Like it, that's interesting.
I've actually heard that from some people. Yeah, I disagree. I don't think it's too bright. I love the color palette, but I
They're
can see why
outside
people would complain
traveling
about
like 90% of the time. It's bright
Yeah.
outside. Touch grass.
They're literally in the
like-
desert.
But I do agree that some of the interior scenes do look a little bit brighter than they probably should be.
What?
But
That's
I'm
a
okay with
fucking
it.
great lighting in
doesn't-
part 3. That's interesting.
It doesn't. For me, it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of it.
So pretty much like the weird thing about that old adaptation. So like so there is 6 episodes back in 93 to 94. And then they released 7 episodes in 2000, between 2000 and 2002, which were supposed to like complete the adaptation. That's like the beginning of the story. It was same studio, but it's pretty much a different team by the time they completed that adaptation. So yeah, so if you're looking for like a little bit more JoJo, I would recommend checking out at least the first 6 episodes, just to like get that bit of like history of Satoshi Kon. I think that's really really cool. But yeah, so
Standard episode length, right? For those old episodes.
were they 20 minutes long?
It's been a long time since I watched this. I genuinely don't remember if they're like standard length episodes. They may be like actually 30-minute episodes a piece because they are OVAs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I genuinely don't remember the runtime for each episode.
Honestly,
I feel like
I'd be down to watch.
I feel like if it was longer, it wasn't much longer than a regular episode.
All right.
So, just like the thing to sort of like finish that story up, which is kind of interesting. So the distribution of the OVAs was canceled after an Egyptian cleric complained that the anime portrayed Dio reading a Quran. So after that happened, like there's no like it's pretty. I don't know if you call it lost media. Like you can probably find it, but in terms of like legal releases, like there's nothing. So it's kind of lost.
Yeah, and
at
it's
that.
as
Deemed
far as I know,
culturally
it's never
insensitive.
Yeah.
never been released on like DVD or Blu-ray. I mean, unless someone's transferred it themselves.
That's honestly a shame.
Yeah.
I'm sure it exists on Internet Archive somewhere.
Yeah, you probably
yeah.
can.
And there's
torrent
there's
it.
plenty of clips. There's plenty of clips you can find of it on YouTube today.
It's crazy how like because every now and then I hear a story that's how people got in the West got introduced to JoJo. You know, which is crazy because it's such an obscure little piece of like OVA,
Lost
right?
media now. Yeah.
But yeah, like
Yeah.
I have a lot of notes that I'm like going through, so I try not to
Yeah,
dwell on too
I
much.
didn't look at this entire thing because I was like, what do I need a freaking thing for? A document for this for? But Jesus, man, what the hell?
Time it
does
all out.
research.
Good job. Yeah.
Dude does his research, man.
It's crazy to see like because I was trying to like read some stuff about like part 3 and just reading about these OVAs I was like whoa hold on, this is a rabbit hole I'd like to go down on, but maybe at a different time. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Like I've done to give it a shot maybe sometime in the future. But if we fast forward to 2014, we can talk about the actual adaptation we're here to discuss. So again, produced by David Production. Season 1 aired started airing April 2014. And the second season began airing a year later, June 2015. So each season 24 episodes long. Each season has its own OP and ED. And pre-production of Stardust Crusaders actually started as early as July 2013. So like right when, like in the thick of parts 1 and 2, it was greenlit. So basically, in terms of direction and like the main staff, so both seasons were directed by Naokatsu Tsuda and Kenshi Suzuki, and character designs were done by Masahiko Komino, who served as chief animation director previously, and the stand designs were co-handled by Shinichi Machida and Masahiko Komino, which in itself I think is like one of the like the things I like the most about like the new, and we'll get to it, the new battle system with the stands. I really enjoyed the evolution of the character designs in terms of like we'll see how through the parts the designs evolve. But even here in part 3, where it's like the most, we'll talk about like the basic bitch type of stands we'll see. Still, like some of the designs like are great, and I love the way they went on adapting that. But speaking of designs, with the new part comes a new art style. What did you think of everyone being big old Bionicles and having these beefy arms and
beefcakes.
shoulders?
Hot.
Even the
hot as
kids
fuck.
were buff as shit. Like,
I know.
What the heck?
Like there's the episodes with in the beginning with the girl. I forget her name. But the little girl they find in the stowaway on the ship. Like even she looks like, bro, you're
Anne?
supposed to be like 11. Like, she's supposed to be like 11 years old, and it's like
No,
she's
12.
got like muscles. What the fuck?
Yeah, she's like 12.
She's
Yeah.
like 12. That
Voiced
gorilla is
by
a
I mean-
Rie
pedophile.
Kugamiya, by the way.
I mean, look at
Ooh,
that!
this
Look at
shit.
that boy!
Yeah.
Look at that
Look
thick
at that
boy.
boy!
Yeah, the main character is Jotaro, and he's supposed to be in, I want to say middle school or something.
He's
Or
17.
high school.
He's
17
17
years
years
old.
old.
Yeah, he's 17, and it's just like, yeah, he's 17 for real.
I like how each character is their like shoulders like a circle. It's a round circle.
It's
It
just like
looks
looks like they're
massive.
all wearing fucking pauldrons and shit.
Yeah.
from the 40K universe. It's friggin'
One thing
nuts.
I love about this re-release of the manga is that they've clearly gone with how Jotaro looks near the end of the series for the cover art, right? But when you first see him, boy, does he look different. And also, I want you to take notice of his hat. Number one, his hair comes through the top of his hat instead of the back of it. And his hat actually does have an ending spot on the back of his head.
Because for most of the show, like his hat just is morphs into his hair, which
Yeah.
Yeah, and even
sorry.
when he takes off his hat, the hat still has like the little feathers in the back.
yeah.
Which I love how, I don't know if it's Araki himself or one of his editors has tried to retcon why that is. Because the story that's been given is that Jotaro actually cuts off locks of his hair and glues them to the back of his hat to make it look like his
What
hat
the
is
fuck?
part of him. Like, what a chuny thing to do, by the way.
I mean,
Also-
to be honest,
Also, look how not comically large his chain is on his lapel.
because in the anime it's massive, like just a big chunk of metal on his like coat, right? But
Yeah.
it's funny you say that's the sort of story behind his head, because like the whole inspiration of Jotaro as a character is the Yankee culture that was in high schools around the 70s, 80s in Japan.
Yankee.
Where you had these delinquents with this like massive pompadour hair, and they're like super like just very like aggressive and stuff, like, so that was the inspiration of Jotaro as a character. That, and apparently Clint Eastwood was also the inspiration for Jotaro, which I
Yeah,
find
I've
like,
heard this,
um,
which is wild.
Well, if you think about, I'm not sure if you guys know who Dirty Harry is.
yeah,
See,
punk.
yeah,
I
like-
love those movies, man.
Punk.
Yeah, so
You feel lucky?
are you feeling
Do ya,
lucky? Do ya?
punk?
Punk. It's like if you think about the attitude that Clint Eastwood had as Dirty Harry, it's like I can see it.
Yeah.
Because
Also,
that's
like
that's
the
Jotaro's
gun,
entire
it's
attitude
just
the
a
entire
finger.
time. Yeah. Timmy.
Damn it. Which honestly, like seeing years later when he actually met Clint Eastwood and he gave him like this portrait of Jotaro, I think it's brilliant. I love it.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, the man is living his dream.
So I'm looking at I looked this up earlier because I was like I was gonna make a statement like part 3 is really what like JoJo's had a cult-ish following when it had part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
But part 3 is really what like shot put it into like now people know what JoJo's is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
according
where
to
the glow up
Google-
happened.
According to the Google Analytics, it's actually part 3 is when it had like a giant spike. Like let's see. It went
Makes
from, like,
sense.
2 to 4. I'm not sure what this is in 100,000. Value peak. Okay, it has a point system on Google Analytics.
Okay,
But, like
it had 2 points.
before part 3, it had like 2 to 4 points. Then when
Okay.
part 3, when the second part to part 3, the exciting part to part 3 comes out, it jumps all the way to like 20. So like quite literally.
Oh, that's
it-
crazy.
5 times the amount of interest.
No,
When,
2015 was when like JoJo popped off. At least, definitely
Yeah.
in the West.
Like
Definitely in the
the
West.
first time JoJo's popped off was then, and then it actually has a huge spike over in 2019.
Part 5.
Which would have been around the
Part
time
five.
Part 5, yeah.
5 was
Part
coming
5
out,
was
Part
I
5 was
think
like what everyone
the
knows
peak.
JoJo's because everyone at this point in time, like the cult following started with part 3, like the niche cult following started with part 3, but part 5 is what shot put it into the mainstream.
I will die on
uh,
the hill that like the thing that drove like the main driving force behind JoJo's popularity gaining more and more to the point where it peaked in part 5 was the memes. I
Yeah.
genuinely
agree.
believe
I
the
agree.
memes
Yeah.
were like one of the biggest things that drove it all the way to the top.
And there's lots of them in part 3, that's for sure.
Oh,
Don't get me wrong, it's got plenty of like fun characters, fun scenes, all that, but it was genuinely the memes and the community that really drove it up in
the
popularity.
memes spread like wildfire. You know, like
Yeah.
you see it everywhere. Fucking watching that trailer of JoJo's Rabbit on YouTube, you go down, it's just JoJo memes all
Yeah.
in the comment section. It's funny.
I'd like to point
Um,
out that at this current time and place in 2024 and 2025, JoJo's is just as popular as when Part 3 came out. So interest
Holy
has
shit.
definitely died down after Part 5, and I'm assuming
But it
this
hasn't
giant
bottomed
dip
out.
is. Well, I'm assuming this giant dip is when Part 6 came out.
I mean, maybe.
Part 6 was rough when it aired, which like just the
But I
schedule
would-
was.
I would wager to say, I'm not looking at exactly what you're looking at, but I would wager to say that it hasn't like completely bottomed out to where it was in like, say, pre 2013.
No, it
Yeah.
definitely hasn't bottomed out. Pre 2014.
No, there's still
actually.
interest in JoJo in general. I think like it's still.
Yeah,
big.
I think that it
yeah.
has its.
Watch when
like I
7
said,
comes
the
out.
Part 3 is where the cult following started, and the people
Yeah.
who love JoJo's, and just like I said, Part 3 is so. There's so many things that I see quoted from Part 3. You know, like
All the
fucking
time.
yada yada does it.
It's like every single anime season, there's a new JoJo's reference that you see.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many people that freaking reference specifically Jotaro. Like
Yeah.
freaking what's her name in Kill la Kill?
Oh,
Ryoko?
No,
No,
Ryoko,
the other chick.
the other chick,
Oh,
Mako.
Mako?
Mako. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like, I understand that Jotaro is a caricature of like the Yankee, but it's like the Ora shit, all right, the Muda shit, all that stuff,
Bro.
is all Jotaro.
Bro, I literally last night I watched a new Invincible episode, and he does an Ora. He literally
See?
shouts Ora. I was like, whoa! I was losing my mind. It's so funny. The way again like how much it became ingrained in like especially Japanese culture, but then it's now perpetuated in Western culture as well. You see like an American animated TV show like Invincible pull a JoJo reference. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and then like all the fucking so many memes spawn from like the Zawaldo, Tokyo Tomare, right?
Yeah.
And
All the English that Joseph does.
All
What?
of it.
All the
All the
English that
English.
Joseph does. Is
Holy shit! Son of a bitch!
oh no!
So
yes. Oh
Yes,
my
yes,
God.
yes.
Oh, that's a
It's so
baseball.
Dude, I love that one so much. It was so funny. I was rewatching it and you posted that thing and I was just like, I'm literally on that episode right now. So I was like, oh, what a
It's so
baseball.
funny.
Or, oh, that's a baseball.
that's a baseball.
I love it.
Racer.
You know, building off of what John just said, though, like maybe people might disagree with this, but I've always looked at JoJo's as parts 1 and 2 is where Araki learned to like get started, like learn to walk, and part
Right.
3 is where he learned to run. Part 4 is where he found his voice.
Definitely. I think
I
like it's
definitely
all
agree,
you
yeah.
can see the building blocks
Yeah.
with every single part. Definitely.
See, for me, JoJo's Part 3 is actually what got me into JoJo's.
Me
Because
too.
Part 3 was the one where my buddy was watching it. I'm like, what are you watching? And he's like, JoJo's. I'm like, JoJo's? What's that? So this is
whole
what got
reason-
me into it.
You
The
also
whole
hear
reason
that
I
name.
got
It's like, what
into
the
it-
fuck does that even mean? JoJo.
Yeah, I was like, there was a point in time where I didn't know what JoJo's was. And it was because of Part 3 that I got into JoJo's because I'm just like, this is stupid. Like,
What got me into JoJo's was definitely the memes from part 3, but it was when we first started doing the podcast in like 2015 and into 2016. That was around the time when part 4 was starting, and it was Riker who was on our podcast back then. He was a huge JoJo fan already, and he was constantly posting memes from part 3. I'm like, all right, I got to check this out. I got to see if it's as good as you say it is.
So
And lo and behold, it was.
you're
so, like,
approaching me? Instead of
Can
running
beat the
away,
shit up-
you're approaching me?
Can beat the shit out of you without approaching you.
Damn it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So, speaking of, like, we talked about some of the characters. So let's talk about like let's zoom in on that. So, Jotaro is voiced by Daisuke Ono, which many of you might know as Erwin from Attack on Titan. By the way, might be the quintessential Daisuke Ono role, if I'm being honest. You know,
I think it is.
Yeah.
It's probably the one he's going to be remembered for forever.
like he owns this role forever. Like there's no replacing.
To be fair, he does a great job as Erwin in Attack on Titan too.
Oh,
Let's not be,
definitely. But I think like whenever you hear Daisuke Ono, you will always go, "Oh, it's Jotaro." You know, like it.
Yeah, like when you go Daisuke Ono, you go, who's that? You go, Jotaro. Like, I know who that is.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
like,
Also, get used to that Ono name because you're going to hear it a lot going
Oh,
forward.
yeah. Just like with Dio, his like voice actor, it's like you just open.
yeah,
the show,
I know.
it's like, "Wait, is that
He's in a
Dio?"
lot of things. I know him as Dio, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, everyone
definitely.
knows him as
Dio
Dio.
da!
So
That's like the guy that voices Kaiki in the Monogatari series. Like, Kaiki!
So like Jotaro is like we are introduced to him like, and I love that. Like the first introduction we get to him is it's him in prison.
No, the first introduction we get him is calling his mom a bitch.
Which sets the tone, sort of like to what we get through him for most of the part, right? So like, what did you think of
Okay.
him? She's a special kind of lady. His mom sure is. So what did you guys think of him when you first like got introduced to him as the new JoJo of the part?
I love the
I thought he was
introduction,
a prick. I loved him.
man. The introduction of him as a character is so well done. Like that whole, not just that first scene where he's introduced, the whole thing where he's in the jail is great. Even
Yeah,
after
the lead up to him as
even after Joseph and Abdul come in, like that whole, all that stuff is great. It does a great job of establishing his character very early on.
He's just so cool, bro.
I know.
He got.
He's a cool guy
he
like
got
that.
like, what do the kids call it these days? He got that aura,
Ora, ora,
Aura
ora,
plus
ora, ora, ora.
9,000.
like whatever, friggin' I don't know. I'm not a child no more, but he got that aura about him.
He doesn't have Ohio Riz. I hate that I just said that. God.
Get out of here, bro. Fucking leave. And also, like,
I'm gonna go hang myself right now.
good.
I thought you mean unalive, right? That's what they say.
No, that's
That's
true.
the kids saying.
As the kids say.
As the kids say. Maybe one of the best character themes ever in terms of soundtrack.
Yeah, I like Jotaro's theme.
Like, I don't know, like with thoughts on.
I don't know.
Like,
Giorno's theme is pretty
Yeah,
good.
I
man.
think
So-
I prefer
Turtle's theme is
Giorno's.
like the best. Like,
I'm
that's,
talking.
like,
Okay, so let's like.
Thus
so the
far,
thing is,
sure.
yeah, thus
Yeah.
far, thus far. We're still not. We don't have future knowledge like that, right?
Right.
But like that's a jumping off point for the new composer who is actually part of the production, who's going to be the composer for the all future parts, at least as of now.
Yugo Kano, baby.
The one and only Yugo Kano. So I love Jotaro's theme, and I love how it sort of serves as a backbone for like the rest of the soundtrack for this part and future parts as well. Like, you know, whenever it comes to the main themes of part 4, 5, and 6, they all build off of the work in part 3. In general, I think like the aside from the main thing, I think the soundtrack of part 3 is kind of like, you know, like very underrated. I think it's like there's a lot of cool tracks there in terms of just the energy of it. It's like super energetic, super like, you know, jazzy sometimes and funky. It's great.
Yeah, I think the soundtrack's all right. I wasn't too into the OP and EDs. Like,
Which I wanted to talk
really.
about actually.
Really?
None of them?
Well, I like Stand Proud. That one's not.
Okay.
I love
terrible.
Stan Proud.
It's
So
it's
tuned up.
it's not as good as part 1 or part 2. Let's be honest here.
I mean, yeah.
But I have a complaint about the ED1 Walk Like an Egyptian.
It's
Like-
so good.
My complaint is that they don't get to Egypt until the second part of part 3. So why is it Walk Like an Egyptian being played when they're trying to get to
come
Egypt?
on.
Like,
Bro,
they're
just
on their
enjoy the
way.
vibes. Don't worry about that.
Because they're on
I
their
just
way
wanna
to
say-
Egypt.
I just want to say they missed a golden opportunity with Part 3, whether it was a second ED or a first ED, to use Dio's Egypt, okay? They missed a
They
huge
missed out.
opportunity.
They fumbled. David Production fumbled. What?
Like,
First
the
Thing is
actual
great,
artist
though.
Dio has a song called Egypt, and they could have used it.
I think Walk Like an Egyptian is great tone. Like, it's just a tone ED. Because, you know, it's the adventure, and, you know, you vibing. They're on the way to Egypt to kick this gay vampire's ass. It's going to be great, you know. It's going to be fun. It's like a...
I mean,
just
I don't think the first part of Part 3 is that good.
It's not as exciting. No.
It's like when you watch Part 1, it feels like it's a slog for the first 3-ish episodes, because it's like, got to get all the introduction of the first 5.
I would argue 10, but okay.
It's a slog, to say the least.
The first
Unlike
part is a
part
slog.
2,
There are parts of
Unlike Part 2, where it's instantly just like, this is hilarious, I love this.
Yeah, like
But-
I would argue that there are many parts of the first half that almost, I know they're not, but they almost feel like filler. Like, and that's not to take anything away from the part as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, I know that these fights are they're setting a groundwork, and I get it. It's just, man, it feels like you could have been done with these in like half an episode. We didn't have to spend an entire episode on this shit.
Yeah, so, like, the big elephant in the room, obviously, is that we're done with Hamon as a battle system. And
Yeah.
because basically...
Even though
part
they
2
still... That's
Yeah,
I have-
it's
I have
funny
a
how
ma-
they-
I have a complaint about that towards the end of Part 3.
So it's funny how they sort of like... So the whole shtick is... Because obviously, to some extent, with Hamon, by the end of part 2, it sort of like exhausts itself as a battle system, I guess. And Araki was like, all right, it's time to switch it up. And it's trying to, like, figure this new thing out. So canonically, I guess... stands as like a new form of Haman because you know, if you cover their breathing, they can use their stands, even though they retcon it later. It's not really an issue, but it's so stands as like the new battle system.
You can... There's a lot of things about the stands that don't make sense. You know, there's a certain
lot.
part where
A
they're
lot.
like, oh, we'll be underwater, so we can't talk. It's like, fine, it's fine. We can talk to each other with our stands. And then it's like, wait, Iggy has a stand. How come you can't talk to Iggy? This makes zero sense. None of you guys,
'Cause his
none of
stand-
this is being consistent. But
Yeah, because his stand doesn't work.
to be
underwater.
fair, Hamon wasn't consistent either, because I remember my complaint about Part 1 was like, Hamon can't conduct inorganic things, so you can't use it to like break down steel doors. Yet you can use Hamon to conduct it into a sword, even though it's like, no, you literally said in the first part of Part 1, Hamon does not conduct. That's why you can't use it against a steel door, but you can
But didn't he
apparently use it
conduct
against a
because-
sword.
Did he conduct it through his hand to like heating up the sword, and that's how it worked?
No, he
We are
coded
not going
the
back
sword
to this.
in
Jesus
Hamon.
Christ.
No, but
quoted
because
the sword in
through his
Hamon.
arm, which grabs the sword.
They quite literally state that Hamon does not conduct an inorganic matter. You can't
They
use
do,
Hamon to like go through rock to do anything with it. All right, they literally say that, but whatever. So I mean,
Basically,
JoJo's is
yeah.
inconsistent as all hell. All right,
Yeah.
basically the
It's-
new system is like just like big golden punching ghosts behind behind everyone, and like it's again like so this is like the building blocks of this new system, and this leads to the new format, the new structure of the story, which is basically villain of the week for
I'd
most of
also
the part.
like to point out that so when we get to the villain of the week, we find out that there are other stand users outside of the actual like
main cast.
the main cast
out there,
right?
Yeah,
And they have like a power scaling thing that don't care about. No one cares about
You-
that.
no, don't
Yeah.
don't think about
No
it too
clue
hard.
why that's even there, to be honest. like,
I
it's
honestly completely forgot about the power scaling system because it
and
doesn't
because there's
matter.
some
completely
stands
dropped
where I'm just
going
like, that
forward.
stand is way stronger than any other stand here, but there's no reason it should have lost. But I think that with the inconsistency of how like the stands work and stuff like that, there's just it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
But I
It's
think
never
but I think like
consistent.
no, but I do think like the stands work as you still like as in parts 1 and especially 2, like you because the whole thing with Hamon was as like it evolved was to allow Araki to showcase characters which wouldn't like at face value wouldn't work as like fighters. Like they still like hang in there, right? Like it doesn't necessarily matter your physical appearance or whatnot. And that's sort of like now it's like the ultimate conclusion of that, which is like, oh, it doesn't matter what type of person you are. If you have a stand and it works, you can use it in really tricky and manipulative ways to like,
Well,
get the
they
upper
talk
hand.
about, all right, so Dio comes back, and that's why the Joestar family has awakened to the power of stands.
Yes.
Right? But then we literally learn from Kakuin that he's had his stand power his
ages.
entire life. And
Yeah.
it's like, wait, he's had it before Dio came back and flooded the world with like stand power. So it's like, how does any of this work, dude? There are certain people that were assassins for like 30 years using stand powers before Dio was like alive or back in the top world. Like, so like, what the heck? Like,
No,
I get
'cause
that maybe because he was fusing
happened
with, so maybe it's because he was fusing with Jonathan's body for the last, I don't know how long he's been sank it down in the ocean.
100 years?
100 years.
100
Something
years.
like that, yeah.
So maybe when he first started fusing with Jonathan's body, that's when like stand power emanated throughout the world, I suppose. I just think it's a little bit inconsistent. I mean, a lot of it is inconsistent with the stand stuff. Other than like, this is a cool fight. Also, I wish that they tried to base all of the assassins on tarot cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And then they run out of the tarot cards, so they move to
Yeah.
Egyptian gods.
Yeah, like the tarot cards and the Egyptian gods, none of their stand abilities really matched their card. And I'm like,
No.
this is kind of dumb. Why would you call them this as a tarot card or an Egyptian
I think
god?
it sounded
and
cool
their
to
stand
them
power
too.
has nothing to do
Yeah,
with it. Like,
I think
what was
that's
the point of
exactly it. It's because it sounded cool at the time. That's probably
Yeah.
the answer.
I mean,
And
part
it
3
makes me
is rule
wonder-
of cool, so
It makes me wonder if maybe Araki had planned in the beginning for each part's stands going forward to have different naming schemes.
But they sort of
Like-
like decided to leave that out too because it's
And
just
it's like,
a weird
yeah, I'm already
restriction.
naming characters after like these rock bands and Western musicians. Why don't I just name the stands after Western
yeah, because
musicians?
in
and
the
songs
first
and
part,
shit?
the stands are named a color and the tarot card, right?
Yeah,
Star
Hermit
Platinum,
purple, Hierophant
Magician's
green.
red, yeah, like that all just goes out the window because he's like, this is too hard.
I think it's
well,
just
you're
like kind of
also
a weird
limiting yourself.
restriction. Yeah, it's a
You're
restriction.
limiting yourself with the tarot cards because there's only 22
I thought there were 20.
major arcane tarot cards that actually have names.
However many there are.
I don't know.
I mean, there's- I think
thought it was
I
like
played
26 or
Persona. I remember. No.
Is it 22?
I do not.
23, something like that.
Our
It's-
Persona player, pedophile. What is it? How many?
No. Don't worry about it.
But however many it is, you're obviously limited by the number that there are, and unless you're
Yeah.
going to go forward in different parts and just reuse stand names, which would be very confusing.
Yeah.
It was a very limiting thing for him to choose.
But my point was, I think it's cool that through this new battle system, he still like through that evolution, he still maintains like the cool things about parts 2, especially, which was how like characters can just outmaneuver each other and like through wits, not necessarily like strength, they win fights, right? Like you have all these like, cool moments of you have this aha moment of using this stand in a very clever way, which especially happens in later parts, but you still get that sort of like spirit in this part, with the beginning of the
Yeah.
stands.
Lots of slay of hand and mind chicaneries.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, not as much as part 2 had. Like, I knew
Oh,
you
yeah.
would think
Definitely.
that I would do that. That's
Definitely.
why your next line is.
Yeah.
And also, like in part 3, they have this weird thing. Like, for example, like it's the biggest like example of like the faults in part 3 in terms of like the fights sometimes, which is Starfinger.
Starfinger.
It's like for one episode or two, I think maybe they use it twice. Like Jotaro's Star Platinum can like stretch his fingers out.
And it's never
like-
seen again, ever.
Never seen it
Ever.
again.
Even in times in the future where it could have been useful to do this, man.
They also say
but-
that Star Platinum is the fastest stand. It is not the fastest stand.
You've been keeping track of the power scaling every episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I keep like I said, part 3, we're introduced to a new fucking combat system, and I have to critique it because it's like, all right, what is this new combat system? How does it work? Oh, as it turns out, it works however the fuck Araki wants it to work.
In that
There
one
is no
instance.
consistency.
I think most of the
Like-
time, though, I think he builds fights, like pretty well in terms of it doesn't have as much bullshit. But when you do have the bullshit come out of nowhere, it's very noticeable, right?
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
But more
No,
often
this
than not,
is-
I think
Boingo
it's
was
very-
not a complete bullshit. Like
Boingo,
sun?
boingo.
the sun.
What? The sun
the
is
sun,
great.
hella dumb.
I
No,
love
the
that
sun is one of the
episode.
most bullshit stands.
I
in
love
all
that
of JoJo's
episode.
history.
It's so stupid.
What do you mean?
It's got some-
It gave you
it's
the
got-
best English in the entire show. That
It's got
episode.
it's got quotable lines. I'll give you that, but the fight itself is bullshit, man. It's the sun.
Everyone's losing their minds when they realize it's just a fucking guy behind a mirror.
no!
My
Oh,
favorite
God.
piece of Joseph thing ever is that one where he peeks out the cave with the spyglass. It is like, and then they shoot him down. He's going, "Son of a bitch!"
my
great.
best bit or my favorite bit of JoJo's or Joseph's English is the baby stand, where they see the baby written as like, oh no,
No.
it's so protracted and drawn out to his oh no.
Which
No, mine's the
also,
one where he goes, "Oh my god!" The one I use for the server. That one's the one where God, I don't remember if I think it's from when he fights Mariah. That episode.
I love
Yeah.
that episode.
That's
Pretty sure
a
it's
great fight,
almost
by
that.
the way.
It's when he finds the he's looking up for the legs and it turns out to be the
Oh
old lady.
yeah.
I think that's where it came from. It's somewhere in that area. I forget. It's somewhere, but it's in that episode somewhere.
Speaking of Allman Joseph, by the way, who is voiced by Unshu Ishizuka, which you might know as the voice
R.I.P.
of R.I.P., which you might know as the voice of Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop, the Japanese
I
voice actor.
I've
would
never.
not
I
know
know
that.
none
I
of us
never listened.
none of us watched Bebop in Japanese, but I still
But I
wanted to
knew
put
it was
out
the
there.
voice of him.
But we do. John and I know him from Gintama as the hard-boiled detective character.
Oh, he's the hard-boiled detective.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Does
Rest
he do
in
English
peace.
in that too?
No, actually, he doesn't. But
No.
he's hilarious in that part. Which also this leads to a new dynamic of we are having 2 JoJos this time instead of 1.
That's true.
Uh,
We have old man Joseph.
What do you think of
young
what?
Joseph-
I want thoughts on Old Man Joseph from you guys.
I love it.
I love him.
I love
He
Old Man
is such
Joseph.
a
He's
chaos
hilarious.
goblin. Yeah.
like
I also love the whole thing. I mean, you get a peek of him at the very end of part 2, which we talked about, where he's in the airport. He's like, "I'll never forgive the Japanese."
yeah, me.
But I love the fact that even at the beginning, where they're in like the Joestar or not the Cujo household, and he's sitting there, Abdul's doing the tea ceremony, and he pulls out instant coffee. He's like, "Instant coffee's just fine."
I
And
love
he
his
pours the hot tea water in the instant coffee.
his big ass pajama is great in that episode.
Yeah. Also, he's massive. The dude is fucking ripped and massive at
bulky.
67 years old or however old he's supposed to be.
When you watch it
He's
for
a
the first time,
Chad.
did you get like a small whiplash of his personality as compared to part 2?
He is not as much of a rapscallion as he was in part 2, but I get that. No, he's supposed to be
old.
older, so he should have let go of most of that tendency. He's not nearly as playful as he was when he was voiced by Sugita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will say, the dude who does his voice, the way he's voicing him seems like a natural progression of Sugita's voice and the way he voiced Joseph in part 2.
Well, I think that Joseph's old man Joseph still has the same character traits as young Joseph.
Yeah.
When he's being tied down to the escalator and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die! I can't believe it!" The overly dramatic,
Yeah.
I think it really
classic
captures
Joseph.
Yeah, I think it really captures the character really well in terms of evolution of character as well as progression of who he is. And I feel like it captured it really well between the anime and how Araki wrote him.
Yeah.
For sure.
I can tell you the scene where him and Avdol get stuck together. I could 100% see young Joseph acting the exact same way in that.
Dude, the
exact
Mariah episode
same
is so
way.
good.
Mara episode is one of the best in the entire part. For sure.
Where Abdul's
By
like,
country
Abdul,
mile.
you're gonna have to slide off of me, and then Abdul gets down. It's like Abdul's like, wait a second, this is kind of sus. And then they're like, oh my god, stop moving like that. And they're like, ah.
And then, like, all of a sudden, like, no one's around, and right as this happens, it cuts her. It's like you can see everyone surrounding them, watching them do this.
Bro, with the old lady like chasing them all the time. You just want to get
Hitting him
stoned
with
by
the
Old Man
purse?
Joseph.
Oh, God,
No,
I love
Old Man
that
Joseph
Damn
is
part.
near
great.
died watching that episode. I was
The
laughing
Mariah
so
stuff
hard.
is hysterically funny.
Yeah, it's a great episode. But
Yeah,
speaking of,
Quite like Old Man Joseph. Like as much,
Yeah.
I love all versions of Joseph, but Old Man Joseph is probably more of my favorite just because of how funny
Interesting.
he is the entire time.
he's
Because
hilarious.
the English that he brings to the cast, how he's basically the support, like, because he has the weakest stand of them all. They all admit
Yeah.
that. Like Hermit Purple, what does it do? Oh, I can take spirit photos by destroying cameras or TVs and shit. Other than that, I can.
and he
it's a
can
whip.
Spider-Man. He can like
It's,
web
it's
can
sling
basically
Spider-Man
just a
with him.
whip, and he still uses Hamon. He can still
Yeah,
use
and
Hamon.
he uses Hamon.
yeah.
I will get to something that happens in part 4 when we talk about it, where I think that Hamon is being used in part 4 too.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll get to it
I
in,
think a
like,
lot
2
of
years.
the problems in Stardust Crusaders would have been solved if Joseph just taught everyone how to use Hamon. Just saying.
Yeah.
Like in there's literally the Dio versus Joseph thing where it's like Dio still can't touch him because he's like he wraps his body in Hamon. It's like, oh, I'm like, you know who could have really used that? The rest
Literally
of your squad.
everyone. Yeah.
But
If you just
maybe
taught
not
them Hamon-
everyone can be taught Hamon, you know.
I understand that Hamon takes a while to learn because even with young Joseph in part 2, like they took him how long? Like a month or whatever to learn how to
Yeah,
use
it
Hamon
takes time.
properly.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's
And he's
not
been
consistent.
doing it
something
ever
you
since he
instantly
was a young
learn.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
And ever
but he
since
was
he's
also
kid,
a
he's been doing it.
genius at Hamon compared to like Jonathan.
So
Still, he could have at least gotten them started.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, literally, whatever. It's fine.
so
Inconsistency
mentioned,
in JoJo's, I could never.
so,
Iraqi
so we
would-
mentioned Abdul Muhammad Abdul previously, and that leads me to like so the whole thing. So we saw the progression of a supporting cast with part 1 not really having any, part 2 that's sort of like more testing whether you have Caesar, who's like a major character aside from Joseph, the main character, as well as Lisa and some of the other folks. And then with part 3, we get like a new foundation of like this formula going forward with the squad, the gang, the whatever you want to call them. That's the main
boys.
cast of the part.
Yeah,
the
the
boys.
The Stardust Crusaders.
Which so here we have. So first of all, we meet Abdul in the first episode, accompanying Joseph. And Abdul is sort of like more of the straight man of the group. I would say, right? Like he's like sort of
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes
fourth wall
not.
character. He has fourth wall character breaks where it's like, that's not like in line with my character. I would never do that.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you referencing your character for? Like, what the hell, dude?
It's like sometimes he's like the speedwagon of the part. I would say, right? He's like,
Yeah.
well, this is how it works. It's like the narrator sometimes from like of the fights. But then we have like rounding out the group. We have both Kakyoin and Jean-Pierre
Polnareff.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Like, do you guys have any favorites from the Crusaders?
besides Jotaro?
Besides the
and Old Man
JoJo's.
Joseph?
Besides the JoJo's, let's talk about the rest of the guys.
I mean, I love Polnareff, man. He's my dude.
He's most of like he has the most I guess in your face character arc in terms of his
Yeah.
quest, right?
And he has like a legitimately good reason for joining them. Because he's trying to avenge his sister.
Sister's murder. Like almost all of, like both also Kakyoin, like he was under the control of Dio, as was
Yeah, he wants revenge
Polnareff.
against Dio for doing that to him. Obviously, both of the JoJo's want to fix what's wrong with Holly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not introduced to him yet, but I like Iggy a lot.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was about
Iggy
to
too.
say, the last edition of the group is Iggy, which we get in the second season of the part, which
And there was
his
another one-
introduction is phenomenal, by the way.
There was another person that was supposed to get introduced, but the editor at the time told him no. Whole Horse was originally planned to become one of the Stardust Crusaders.
Really?
Yes, but Araki's editor at the time said this is too many characters for this journey they're going on.
Would he really manage to hang in there with everyone though? Fucking Whole Horse, this fucking
Well,
dumbass cowboy.
I mean, he kind of
you know?
acts like a JoJo. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
He, if I didn't know any better, I would have assumed Whole Horse was part of the gang.
yeah.
He's a fun character.
Do
And
you
then
like
I
his
think
combo with
it's-
Oingo Boingo?
And Araki is working. I don't know if it's out. I don't think it's out yet, and I don't know how far along it is. But he's working on a standalone thing with. It's going to be Rohan and Whole Horse working together.
That's a weird combination.
Yeah, because for whatever reason, people just started not dying. They just started getting retired.
retired.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a change that they had to do because of like,
Censorship or editing.
well, because the JoJo's has always been pretty violent.
And part 3 is
And
violent.
extremely
it's-
Kind of
so,
like
yeah.
gory. Like the
yeah.
again
There's
in
some
the,
fucked up shit going on in this show.
in the Mariah episode, there's that dude who has the fucking nails that go through his fucking skin.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, Jesus fuck. Like, ooh.
Like all the shit that happens with Death 13 is like, whoa, okay. Also, poop humor. That's also a
A
return.
lot of toilet
character.
humor.
Yeah,
A lot of
Yeah, a
toilet
lot of
humor.
toilet
Oh,
humor.
okay. What the fuck?
Polnareff
Poor-
and toilets, the best romance ever.
The best romance in all of anime.
Bro, I feel his pain though. Like, squat toilets, like, nah.
Yeah.
Bro,
When
didn't
Joseph is
the
like, I'm gonna
pig-
go take a shit, and then it's just like it's the air toilet. It's like, nah.
No,
I just
but
wait
you
till,
remember
like-
what he says? You remember what he says? Like, I'm not Polnareff, but even I'm not gonna shit in there.
Where he sees the poop like disintegrate
Yeah.
into the wind. He's like, nah.
Iggy's
Aw,
like
man.
accompany him. Iggy's like accompany. It's like he has this shit eating grin on his face, because of course. Which, by the way, so like we were talking about Iggy, but I think like it's cool how this battle system leads to the fact that fucking a dog can be a stand user. Like anything could be a stand user in this
We had
like
that
new battle system.
early
We had
on.
that
We had the
orangutan
monkey.
that had it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
orangutan. Excuse me.
That rapey orangutan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's
Ooh.
the stand is the ship. Like, I mean,
It could be
crazy.
anything, yeah. But with Iggy, I like the his introduction is great. Like the way they hype it. I was like, oh, you're gonna get a new like member of the team who's gonna help you. I was like, oh, who's it gonna be? Or is it gonna bring in a chopper? And it's this fucking dog.
It's a
you know,
dog.
it's a fucking dog who likes chocolate, the coffee
Chocolate gum.
flavored chocolate.
chocolate chewing.
Oh,
gum,
chocolate chewing. Yeah,
no,
chocolate
coffee.
chewing
It was
gum.
coffee flavored chewing.
It
gum.
was
Was
coffee.
it coffee?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
coffee flavored.
Yeah.
Coffee flavored chewing gum.
I thought it was something with coffee, and like his introduction to the group is great, especially the fight with the duel, which
With
is
in
one of the
Duel,
best
yeah.
fight in the part.
Yeah.
It was just
But,
so
like-
unexpected seeing him out of everything. Just like, what's the dog doing here? Like, I know we saw a monkey.
Well,
but
he
what's
actually
with
saves
dog?
the gang quite a lot prior
Yeah.
to
And
this
then
fight.
and then you see
Like, but
him,
no one knows because like he's just a dog.
Because he's
Yeah.
a piece of shit, you know.
Speaking of the whole thing, so there is some anime original stuff that appears in this adaptation, right? And like
The
the picture,
photograph
that
scene?
that fucking photograph is anime original, and it's not even a one off because it comes back in part 4. You see it briefly in part 5.
Because in part 5 it happened in the manga, but it never happened in the original part 3 manga.
Yeah,
Right?
but then they sort of, I guess this would technically be a retcon to show where it comes from. But you know, and I watched that scene during this this rewatch that I did, And I'm thinking to myself, man, if that happened today, people would be bitching. It's like, it's not an accurate adaptation. They're anime
because
original.
they add stuff, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if people are going to bitch in Chainsaw Man about Aki's morning routine, they're definitely going to bitch about this.
I guess. But I love that scene. I love that it adds to it and then it connects to part 5. Like it's
I love the fact that they
It enhances
number one,
the experience. Yeah.
they did it to explain where it comes from in part 5. Because that photograph appears in the manga in part 5, but you never actually see the picture getting taken.
Yeah.
In the manga for part 3.
And that all cuz it's great because when you look back at it, it's sort of like kind of improves the experience, I think, cuz part 3 for me as well, it's kind of like a difficult watch to get through, but because like, the whole genre of this part is definitely like very inspired by Around the World in 80 Days, right? This like almost road trip type of adventure they go on, like from Japan all the way to Egypt, and it's cool how
They
they're not
literally
too in your-
reference it. Like,
yeah,
In the
and
Joseph
it's
literally
cool
says-
how what's that?
Joseph literally says, back before there were planes and boats, they still got around the world in 80 days.
yeah. And
Hey,
Jules Verne wrote a story about it.
It's cool how basically that whole like road trip experience, they're not too in your face about it, about the camaraderie and the relationship you build with the cast as well, because by the end of like season, even though, and again, I also have issues with part 3 in terms of like how the show is, but it feels like a journey you go on with all of these characters, right? It's like
Yeah.
when you look back at it, it feels kind of nostalgic almost. It's like, oh, I remember that fucking stupid orangutan. I remember that fucking like there's so many moments throughout this part where it feels like this like adventure. It's very much about the journey and the destination, which we'll get to. In a
And
bit.
they definitely don't forget about why they went on the journey in the first place, because you see the stand that's trying to take over Holly's body. I guess
Which I love that
dissipate.
imagery, by the way.
Yeah. Which is another weird inconsistency with stands, because it's like, okay, in the future when we see stands, if this would have happened, it would have just killed her. There would have been no 50-day waiting period.
Maybe different stance, different like strength. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Again,
I do-
inconsistency.
I do like how later on they do sort of give an explanation as to like, you have to be a certain strength of character to have a stand, and if not, it'll just kill you.
Because it's basically like a reflection of your soul, right? Like the stand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is
think-
pretty cool.
Doesn't Abdul say something about that when Holly's stand first starts to manifest? He's like, yeah, in the past, this has happened before to other people in the past, and people
Right.
who could not withstand having a stand have just died.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he did say
Which
that.
is funny because in future parts, especially when we'll get to there's a whole device that you can use to give people stands.
Fucking stand arrows.
Also, it's so like while reading up on part 3 and like looking through all the interviews, I found this one interview with Araki from I think it's from 1993, where he was asked about stands, the name of it, like where it came from, and he basically says, and this is the quote: "I call it a stand after light stands, the type that sits beside your bed in a looming manner when you read. With stands, I thought I could describe loads of things. And I thought I connected stands with tarot cards because I wanted each stand to be unique. I thought 22 would be enough, but I ended up running short." And he laughs. And yeah, and he talks about how most of the stands at the time were like inspired by yokais and like, sort of like more folklore type of like kind of like creatures. And I guess you could see it in part 3, even though you get like, again, one of them is a car, so it's like, okay, but it's, he definitely, like, I do like how he evolved the design of the stands as like he went along more and more of this concept.
And as
but
JoJo's
yeah,
goes along, they get crazier and crazier, man.
But I found it funny that like the whole stand is because it's literally just a light, like fucking
Standing over you.
yeah. So we talked about like the song of the cast, and we talked like the whole like genre of this part. Are there like any memorable episodes that like stuck with you, even beyond just rewatch and you like
The
going
Mariah
back
stuff.
The Mariah,
Yeah,
episode,
Mariah
like I
stuff
said,
is-
so many memes.
Yeah. I mean, and this might be a cheap answer, but pretty much the entire Dio fight it sticks with me because
Yeah,
it's like
the entire arc.
it's literally just one-upsmanship, the fight.
Can I give you a Pet Shop episode?
Pet Shop is good. Pet Shop
Pet Shop
good.
is
The
brutal.
second half of part 3 is, to me, extremely
best.
memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of cool, like, first of all, the Darby brothers. Like,
Darby brothers
fights
are
were-
amazing.
I loved the older Darby fight just because, like, first of all, the whole gambling aspect to it, super cool.
It's great.
Yeah. It's like, because instead of a traditional, I'll outsmart you by using some weird bullshit power, it's just like, no, I'm just going to straight up outsmart you.
Yeah.
Like, that just was really cool. The same
Yes,
thing for
The
the younger
Darby
trickery
Darbies
that
as well.
goes on in this fight is amazing.
Yeah.
Like with
he
him,
has some good English too, man.
He has great English.
Hey, Mr. Joester.
Mr. Joester. Like the moment where he puts a bit of like chocolate on the bottom of the glass just to give it a
Yeah.
bit more, you know, to
When
to
he
change
inspected
the
it, and that's
direction.
how he did it, so he could have it, so he'd fuck up the surface tension. It's just like,
It's amazing. It's
and
like,
then with the classic old man Joseph, or the classic Joseph, like he was cheating the entire time. He was like, it's not cheating if you don't get caught. And he gets
love the
outsmarted
fact-
and out cheated, and it's like, oh,
Which is completely
Great.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Great.
I love the fact that there's a callback to part 2 in the fight that Jotaro has with what's it, the guy that does the possesses Kakuin, the what's the guy's
oh
name?
yeah,
yellow, whatever.
Yellow Temperance, I think, is the name of
Yellow
the stand.
Temperance.
Yeah.
is the stand. I don't
can't
remember the name
the guy's
of the guy.
name that uses it.
I don't remember that guy's name.
But
Yellow
anyway,
Temperance.
there's that scene where they're in like the Ferris
Rubber
wheel
Soul.
thing, and there you
Rubber
go.
Soul.
There's the
That's the
scene
thing.
where they're in the Ferris wheel and like Jotaro is stuck in there with them. And that's also where one of my favorite lines comes from. Do you understand? But then he's like, Jotaro's like, okay, I'm out of options, but I come from a line of Joestars, and we always have a trick up our sleeves.
Yes.
He's like, oh yeah, what's that? And he kicks a hole in the floor. He's like, we run away.
Yeah. The H and Joestar technique.
Jotaro does the exact thing that Joseph says.
Love it. Absolutely beautiful.
I love that. That's one of my favorite like English quotes from Do you understand? I also love that Jotaro gives it right back to him at the end when he's about to beat his ass. It's like, do
Yeah.
you understand?
Also, one scene that I'll always love is, and it's from the first season of part 3, is right at the end of the season where they fight the High Priestess when they're in the submarine under the water. So there's this one moment where they're about to like fucking escape. Yeah, they're about to escape, and then both Polnareff and was it Kakuin?
Kakuin. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kakuin.
Yeah,
They
That's
pulled
my
the,
favorite quote.
So,
Like,
so
how will we communicate underwater? Like, we'll use hand signals. Pants to Miru.
that fucking secret handshake, and Joseph's like, "Oh, what the fuck are you doing? We need to get. There's no time for this bullshit."
Like, we're literally in a submarine that's sinking. We're being attacked by an enemy stand, but they have time to joke around. Oh, yeah, that was my favorite quote from, like, part 3. Just because it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. That's originally for like an older manga, that bit, right? If I remember correctly.
I don't know if it's from an older manga, but it's just like it's something that
it's
a lot
like-
of people know.
It's
Like,
something
'cause
that's
you-
like
when
it's
you
even
clap,
beyond
it makes
JoJo.
the sound, the pa, like pa, clapping is pa, right? Pachi,
Mm-hmm.
pachi, pachi. But it's like pan, tu, and then 0, maru. So it's pantsu miru is what it's supposed to sing. Like, I can see your panties, or I can see your underwear. It's like what it translates to.
Yeah, I remember reading a long time ago. I will look it up later maybe, but it's like this like joke is like, or even before JoJo's. So like it's funny how again self-referential it is sometimes. Um,
I want
I
to show
will
you
say-
guys something really quick from the manga. It is the only time, and this is never happens in the anime, it is the only time you ever see Star Platinum smile, and it is the creepiest thing you will ever see.
Oh Lord.
Hold on. Look
He
how
looks so
creepy that
cursed.
smile
That's so-
is.
he looks so cursed.
I don't like it.
It is
I
the
thought I
only
would like
time
it.
I've ever seen Star Platinum smile, and it's so fucking creepy.
It's yeah, and yeah. Now when we talk about and we mentioned it a few times, but but I do want to get into it because for me it's one of my biggest gripes with part 3 that I think is also doesn't help with how lengthy it is with 48 episodes. That format of like fight of the week, well, I think the issue with it is before, because part 3 doesn't really have a plot. It's we need to go fight Dio. Dio is back.
Yeah,
Let's go kick his ass.
that is the plot.
That is
we
the
need
plot
to
Plot
go
is
to
we
this
have
place.
to save Holly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the plot is we
They
need
have
to
a
save
soft
Holly.
plot.
The plot is we have to save Holly. How do we do that? We go to Egypt, we fight this guy, we kill him.
Yeah, so it's not very
That's it. That's the
plot
whole
heavy.
plot.
It just made it like every episode
feel
is a
like-
different
so-
stand.
With how the first part of part 3, or the first half of part 3, because it's based on the tarot cards and there's like X amount that he has to use, it is like every tarot fight gets resolved basically within the episode.
Yeah,
And it's just like introduction of like what stupid crazy bullshit am I about to see this week,
Yeah.
which is fun and campy at the beginning, but
Yeah.
throughout the middle
doesn't
I'm kinda
have a
getting,
whole
like-
lot of meat to it.
yeah, I'm getting really bored of it. You know, like fucking the guy ZZ with his stupid car stand, like that was a stupid one.
Wheel
Wheel
of
of
Fortune.
Yeah, like that was a dumb fight. I was like, this why did this even exist?
Great name for a car-based stand, though. Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah. Fantastic name.
I'm trying to think of the other tarot cards. Well, I thought the when-
Hangman.
Yeah, Hangman is a great. Jay
Star.
guys.
Jay Giles, or what did
Which
they call
is the
him?
Hangman.
The Crunchyroll
Centerfold.
Centerfold. Yeah,
Centerfold.
Crunchyroll had
Yeah.
a weird like changing of the name localization thing. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's.
Yeah.
I don't have part 3 on Blu-ray, so I don't know if that's like that on the Blu-ray as well.
On
If,
on
if
Blu-ray,
that
I
was
have
just
no
a
idea actually if it's
localization thing.
fixed.
That is a good question. I do not know. I do know that on Crunchyroll and I believe on Netflix as well. Unfortunately, they only have the censored versions. So like all
And on
the
Netflix,
super
yeah.
gory stuff is blacked out.
Yeah, it's super
Jotaro
funny.
smoking is blacked
Jotaro,
out.
Yeah,
because
that's
he's
blacked out.
17 and smoking,
Yeah.
they censor that, but they don't censor any of the adults smoking. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like
or
we
the
can tell what he's
violence.
doing.
yeah. But I think that like, and I think Araki kind of fixed that issue is with context when it comes to part 4 and 5. Just I think part 3 drags with that a bit too much.
I agree.
Because
It goes
yeah,
on. It overstays its welcome.
like again, by the end of it, I do like look back at part 3 very fondly. Like I fucking watched it 4 times by now. Obviously, I like it, but it does drag. But again, once
I
you
think-
hit Egypt, it does pick up, especially with the
It
Egyptian
does.
gods.
Yeah.
I think you guys might agree with me when I say this. I think you could probably take at least 5, if not 6 fights out of it and not lose really much in the story.
I would
No,
agree.
like I said, take out Wheel of Fortune and ZZ. Like that, it was just
What,
stupid
you
fight.
don't like the bug episode in the airplane?
What,
That one was actually pretty funny.
I liked it.
I also liked
I liked it.
freaking when they're in the plane where they have to fight God, the baby stand. What was the baby stand?
Death 13.
Death
13.
That fight
They board
was
the plane.
amazing.
It's like, don't worry, I've flown at least 2 other times, like, and you've crashed both times, haven't you, old man? He's like, don't worry, third
wasn't-
time's the charm.
That wasn't the baby stand.
Every
though. That
time
was the
Joseph
fly.
is in an airplane, he
Yeah, I was
crashes
talking
it.
about the fly stand though, not the baby stand.
No,
the
no,
fly
no,
Yeah,
stand.
the baby
I'm
stand
saying,
is
like
Death 13 though.
7.
Death 13 I thought was a good fight because it had good comedy moments and also like crazy
It's
ability,
creepy.
by the way.
It's
creepy.
fucking
Yeah.
creepy too. And then they
I'll
feed
be
him
honest,
shit.
I didn't much care for the Oingo Boingo brothers.
Yeah,
really
that was
didn't.
really dumb. I hated the stupid song they did at the end.
It's so bad.
Oingo,
It's so-
brazos.
It's so
Like I
bad.
like that they adapt their their manga as like the visual aesthetic, but I it's not my thing.
Like,
I will assume. I agree.
Oingo Boingo could have been
They're
left
good
out.
meme.
Wheel of Fortune could have been left out.
But I do
Um,
think that whole horse with Oingo Boingo was fun. I do like
That
that
was-
episode a lot.
I did
I
like
think
that
that
was-
was
that's
only
like-
mostly because of Whole Horse, honestly.
Well, it was like watching a Laurel and Hardy routine because they're so opposites of each other.
Yeah, because the problem with Oingo Boingo is that because they're brothers, the older brother understands that
stupid.
it's just so dumb. It's so dumb
Because they're stupid.
because they're dumb. But Whole Horse is like completely like, no, that's horse shit. That doesn't make any sense. How does your
Horse shit.
predictions work? It doesn't matter. And he
Whole
keeps
horse shit.
doubting it, and that's like why it's funny. Until at the end when he's like, "Oh God, we can't doubt it. It has to work."
So like if let's approach the finishing line with this part. So, but what did you think of like the decision to bring back Dio? Because we
loved
don't
it.
experience
He is-
much of
he
him.
So I loved it because I think he is the quintessential villain. Like he is the bad guy, and I
He's
loved
the
having
curse of
that
this
back.
bloodline.
Yeah,
Dio has something to do with all of the villains, or at least some of the side villains that the JoJo's encounter in every part except part 4
I mean,
I would,
of
I would-
We'll
the
get
first
to-
6 parts.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
in
we'll
part
get to part 4
2.
when we get to part 4.
But some of the people that you fight, like the vampires that they fight, know who Dio is, and they know
Yeah.
of him.
So, but because you have that build up for Dio for the entire part, you get glimpses of him. It's like, oh, that's cool. And I will say, I think like that build up pays off because the moment Dio is actually back in the flesh, you get interactions with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he never went away. It's still that same
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
asshole. And he's so charismatic. He's so like his energy just like elevates everything around him. It's like his interactions with Polnareff, the fucking like when you don't know what the world like his powers actually is.
He's just fucking with Paul
Just
the
Dio
entire
was
time.
fucking with him.
Yeah. Like, could he kill him entirely instantly? Yes. Does he choose to do that? No. He chooses to fuck with them.
It's
Yeah.
great.
I like and I love the fact that like the visual of that, where you have Polnareff looking up at Dio meaning God in Italian or Latin.
Yeah,
Which
It's
has been
great.
reversed in part 5
it's great.
when he's
And
looking
it's-
down at Diavolo from the top of the stairs, the devil.
And it's funny how much mileage they get out of him as an antagonist because obviously none of these characters knew him the way we do. I mean, they had interactions with him, they have their agenda against him, but this is literally the first time Joseph and Jotaro encounter him. But it feels weighty, right? It still feels like, man, like this like fucking curse of their bloodline is still haunting them, and it feels personal.
feels like
in
they
the
got a score to settle.
Generational enemy. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it
I
feels
feel
like they got a score to settle.
because of part 2, and we know how like well equipped the Speedwagon Foundation is. We know how to defeat Dio with Hamon. We understand you could use UV like because of how the cars and Whammu shit went. We know that we could just use UV lights to like fuck him up.
Yeah.
Did not understand why they didn't just do that.
Because he has the world, and it doesn't matter because he
a
freezes
lot of
time. He just
But,
stops
yeah.
time, bro.
They don't
too
know
OP.
that the world does that, so they could have surrounded the mansion. There's so many things they could have done.
Oh, but I
instead of
didn't
just-
know where the mansion was until like
Yeah, but like the minute they
there.
found it, they could have just like they could have did what Joseph told Abdul to do, burn down the mansion,
Yeah.
like expose him to the sunlight. He has a clear weakness.
A question I wanted to ask you guys is, do you guys think that, because there are obviously main characters that end up dying in this part, do you think those deaths are earned? Because I think they are.
Well, I think the
Um,
first Abdul death is kind of like it's weird that they changed it, right?
It's a
I
fake
thought it
out,
was
but I don't
the
know if the
fake
fake out
out.
is good.
The first death that we have, and the subsequent like fucking with Polnareff, because continually everyone fucks with Polnareff like the entire
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Iggy fucks with Polnareff. The boys
The pig
fuck
in the
with
toilet
Polnareff.
fucks with him.
Everyone fucks with Polnareff. It's hilarious.
Stand
Maybe 'cause he's
users
the
fuck with Polnareff.
But when when they visit that island and we at this point we think Abdul is dead and it's like
Hail
that's actually
to you.
Hail to you. We think it's Abdul's father, and it's just like, no, they were just fucking with Polnareff the entire time. That's actually Abdul. He's actually back. Like,
And
what?
everyone you except for Polnareff because he would have spilled the beans on him.
Which is completely true. Polnareff is
Which
a big
is
mouth.
true.
Yeah, loud mouth.
Another great bit of English in that too, where Polnareff goes, Muhammad Abdul, and Abdul goes, yes,
Yes,
I
am.
While posing.
The
love
deaths
that,
that occur later, though, are like... Sorry,
Like,
what was it,
Iggy's
John?
death is like, oh my god.
Iggy's death was fucking brutal, and that kind of... I had to pause the episode. I was like, yo, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Just another example of Araki hating dogs.
Oh, Rocky kills like 3 or 4 dogs prior to Iggy.
I know.
There's
This is
the two dogs in the pet shop fight. Then there's the other dog that was like Enya in the Enya village or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So that's 3. I don't remember if there was another one before that.
Plus Iggy.
And then there's Iggy. So there's 4 dog deaths.
And if
what
you want to
about,
throw
part 1?
if you want to throw the Danny in part 1 in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Araki's never escaping these allegations.
Apparently he loves dogs. I'm like, I don't know, man. You like killing them a lot. But yeah,
Extra
no,
dogs.
the sacrifice that Iggy does, super cool. Like, I definitely
Such a
thought
great moment.
Polnareff was gonna die, and it's like, nope, reversal again. Like, continually fucking with our expectations here. It's like, nope, Iggy chose to save Polnareff. He's just like, oh, dude.
In one of the most... Like, Vanilla Ice is a brutal stand. It's scary. Like,
Yeah,
or it
and
was
that's why I'm like,
Cream.
Vanilla-
Sorry, Cream. That's the stand
yeah,
of Vanilla
Cream.
Ice.
No, it's what do they call them? Cool Ice? I think is
Cool
what
Ice is in the
It's
localization.
the localization.
Yeah,
But
Vanilla
Cream is
Ice
the name
and,
of the stand.
It's Cream is
Crazy
super
stand.
strong.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Cream wasn't just sent out to kill everyone in the beginning. Like that
Yeah.
just didn't make any sense.
Because he's a vampire as well, bro. He can't be in
No, he
sunlight.
wasn't a vampire until he sacrificed his he gave Dio his blood because Dio was like, I just need one more person's blood to
That's
have
right.
complete control of Jonathan's body. He's like, Vanilla Ice, will you give me your life? And he's like, certainly, Lord Dio. And then he cuts his own head off with cream and then like pours it into the thing. And that's when Dio turns him into a vampire. So he doesn't even know he was
cool
a vampire
shit.
yet.
It's cool shit.
But yeah,
Um,
visually, that part where Iggy dies is brutal, man.
Oh, dude, Iggy getting the shit kicked out of him
Like,
by Vanilla
just-
Ice.
In
just
that
like,
final stretch, the deaths are like brutal, man. Like
oh yeah,
fucking
yeah.
like
I mean,
when you
Kakyoin
get to
and
see-
And then Kakyoin.
Yeah, Kakyoin just getting thrown against the water tower.
Oh.
that one with Abdul, where like his arms, all that's left are just his arms. It's
Yeah.
like it's fuck, man. It's rough. Like again, that shift in writing ever since part 1, where like when people die, they fucking die. Aside from the fake out at the beginning of the part.
Well, see,
Like-
that's the thing. In the beginning, we have plenty of deaths, right? The first
Yeah.
half of part 3, there's plenty of deaths, and then for some reason, people just start getting retired. So it kind of like lulls you into a false sense of security, where it's like, oh, looks like Araki's not going to kill anyone, and then we get to like the last
And he
stretch with Dio, and
murders
it's like
them.
everyone dies. It's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck, dude? Araki, you bastard, you got me.
You got me.
And then you
And
reach
have
that
when the souls of Abdul and Iggy are like flying off, and it's just like,
oh
Oh, man.
dude,
man, you
Polnareff.
feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it. The soundtrack, like the music is soaring. It's like you feel it here, man. It's but then you get to like the final stretch of the part with the fight against Dio, and that fight feels like a struggle in all like in every like the essence of that fight is a struggle, you know,
As you recently said, a capital S struggle.
a capital
Yeah,
S struggle.
Legitimately is.
It's like it feels like it's against all odds, you know, with like like the back and forth, and like they're fighting all over like the city, and then like you think they have the upper hand, and all the trickery going on with the knives, and it's a roller coaster, that fight. It's crazy.
It
Agreed.
recalls to facing off against the
Oh god.
nigh indestructible vampires from part 2, and you're just like, how the shit are you supposed to beat him? Like, what are you supposed to do?
Again, we know how to beat Dio. Sunlight. We all know this. Hamon. Joseph.
But if he
what the
drinks,
fuck?
but he said,
you
but if
fought
he drinks,
Wham.
but he said that if he drinks all their blood, then he will conquer the sun as well.
Nope.
So it
he
wouldn't
just
affect him.
Nope.
No.
Nope. The perfect
You sure about
evolution
that?
where he can withstand the sun was only for Cars. It wasn't for Dio. The only thing Dio had to do was drink one more person's blood to become truly immortal, but he wanted the Joestar bloodline to complete it just because he wanted to kill the Joestars.
Because he's a prick.
I want you all to
Yeah.
remember, though, that somewhere out there in the void of space, Cars is still floating.
Yeah,
Still
because
thinking.
he can't be
Oh
killed.
wait, stop thinking. Sorry.
Yeah,
stop
he's,
thinking.
sometimes he eventually just stopped thinking because he's been floating for like 9 million years. But no, Dio is still, because at the end when Dio is eventually defeated and they go and transport his body, they destroy it in the sunlight,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the very end.
and
What
he
did you
still
think
can't
of-
touch Hamon.
What did you think of his final fashion evolution?
Where he just like instead of having the spiked up hair, he just like shaves it or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just takes off his jacket.
hmm
It was okay. I mean,
It's okay.
it's okay.
It's
I
alright.
thought his outfit
Was it-
pre-evolution.
His outfit was
like,
yeah.
cooler.
His outfit before is
Yeah.
way cooler. I agree.
There's an old meme from part 3 where it's them looking at the photographs where they see Dio, and it's just someone replacing it with the Squidward going, "Oh no, he's hot."
But
But,
Dude, though.
the Dio
I
fight
will-
though has a lot of memes too, though, because a lot of different anime and like anime adjacent things reference
Roda,
Dio's
roda,
fucking
da.
road roller, right?
Yeah.
Road roller da, muda, 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 muda.
Um,
and
something
then the
else we
knife
get to
throwing
see.
thing, like
Yeah,
a lot
something
of
else we get to see-
combat oriented anime adjacent media.
Yeah.
Something else we get to see is during the final fight, we have the change to the OP where Dio takes over the
I was
OP.
about to
Yeah,
get to
I
that. Yeah.
believe I think it's Dio part 2.
So-
that's when he
so-
starts taking over the OP.
So the second opening, End of the World, which is one of my favorite openings ever, because basically they brought all the artists from the previous 3 openings to sing the song together, and
Yeah.
like it's amazing. It's a great OP, and the thing and what got me actually hooked on JoJo was when you get to the end of part 3, and you get that change of the OP where it's basically the world taking over the OP in freezing time, and Dio slowly walking all around Jotaro, and then like facing off him, and just like them fighting by the end of the OP. Like that shit is amazing, bro.
Yeah,
And then you
Which
have like the
then
final.
that starts a trend with JoJo's adaptations
With
where
villains,
during
yeah.
the final fights. The villains take over the OPs.
Super cool.
I love that. It's so fucking cool. And then like the final variant of the OP is you see, because you have all these like small moments in the OP of like the characters in like these weird poses, and then the final version of the OP is you see Dio in those poses trying to kill them, which is a great detail. They add him like that to like killing everyone. Camera focus, bro.
I love how.
Thank you.
I think he's trying to focus on Gengar. I like unironically. I think he's trying to focus on Gengar.
Fuck off. Anyway, I love that OP, which is surprising me that you didn't like it, John.
I like the
You
other.
just didn't like the song?
Bloody Stream is way better. Bloody Stream.
No,
I will agree with John that
Wow.
of the OPs that we've gotten so far, I still prefer Bloody Stream.
Stream's like the
Now-
best opening. Like, come on.
Now,
get outta
Stand
here.
Proud is a close second for me, and
Stand
then
Proud's okay.
and then End of the World.
You know what
is
word
like
is
number 3.
I don't know. It's hard for me to pick between the OPs. I love End of the World. I think it's like a
Can
great
I say?
culmination.
But we haven't talked about it,
It
yet.
is.
But
The
also
EDs.
the ED for the second half is Last
Last Train Home.
Train Home by Pat Metheny Group. When I first watched this and I saw that, because I didn't know going in that was going to be the ED.
Yeah.
I was like, this seems very
Kind of low key.
low key, it seems like it's completely different than anything else that's been used for a JoJo's ED.
The vibes were
thus far.
different.
The vibes are completely different. It didn't seem like a JoJo ED, and then it gets to the end, it's like, I get it.
You get it. It's
I
like
get
very
it.
melancholic. It's very like kind of like
Bittersweet.
nostalgic even. Bittersweet.
Yeah.
Thank you. And by the end of the part where you're listening to it, like, fuck, you get it. Again, the whole thing of the journey you've been through with these characters. Some of them alive, some of them dead now, and it's kind of heartbreaking even.
None of these are as good as Roundabout by Yes, but
No, that's like meme
That's just
tier,
for the
bro.
Memes,
we'll never
bro.
get there.
Again, it's
no,
the
the song is
memes.
legit good.
Nah,
Like, it's one of the
Roundabout
best
is
rock
legit
songs
good,
ever.
Yeah.
I
I don't know about that, but
Oh,
it's good. It's
100%.
really good.
It's one of the best rock songs ever. I will stand by that.
I love that song.
Keep standing, buddy.
So we're approaching the end of this sportcast, and I wanted to ask. So we talked about like favorite quotes, and you mentioned some of them. Shinoda, you didn't mention yours. Is there
Buddy,
a
I
favorite
don't
one?
know.
I don't think
I
he
honestly
remembers
don't
any of
know.
them.
Yeah, I remember.
What's that, John?
But I don't know.
I don't think
any
Shinoda
of my
remembers
favorites.
any of the quotes that he wants.
No,
that
there's
he
a
wouldn't say.
meme. Your favorite meme. Let's go with favorite meme.
You're asking an awful lot of his brain.
Yeah, it's working in overload right
That
now. bro.
is.
He's overclocking it.
Oh. It has to be when old man and Abdul were very
Banging.
close together. Yeah,
Stuck together.
just that whole
And then-
meme of
And
it.
then they're able to get apart for a split second, and they reverse roles. Now Abdul is behind Joseph. Oh my god, dude! The Mariah battle scene is like that's my favorite fight, by the way. If you couldn't tell, just because it's so
Mine too.
funny. It's just so funny. Like
It's a
in
great
terms of
fight.
actual
That has to be,
fight,
yeah.
I'd probably say the Vanilla Ice and Polnareff fight. Like that's just the best fight.
Yeah.
Outside of Dio's like the ending fight, and like I feel like the climactic fight with Dio is the probably ultimate best fight.
One of the best fights in JoJo's.
but
yeah.
it has to be because it's the last fight. I think it's a lot better than like the Cars fight because I thought the Wham fight was way better than the Cars fight in part 2.
Yeah, I agree.
So Araki did right with making the Dio fight the best one, but outside of that, the second to last fight was probably my favorite like actual action combat one, like serious fight. But my favorite, like fan favorite of like, oh, this makes me laugh every time. The whole Mariah thing, dude, and Bassett, hilarious.
So, I agree.
hilarious fucking.
I
series
totally
of
agree.
episodes.
I totally agree because also want to ask about like favorite fights because I also agree that JoJo's fight is like level of its own, but I still think the older Darby fight is my favorite fight.
Oh, that
from
one's
part
really
3,
good too,
aside.
though. Yeah.
I like every time I get onto that episode, it still gets me. It still gets me like this scheming and all the techniques they use. It's amazing.
I would argue that like all the fights that like lead into the fight with Dio are really good. Both of the Darby brothers fights are really good.
Pet
Vanilla
Shop
Ice,
is
obviously.
amazing.
Pet
Pet
Shop's
Shop.
really good. Yeah.
Pet Shop, yeah.
Brutal fight.
And then I like how all those fights lead right into fighting Dio, and it's like God, the lead up is just almost
It's
as good as the fight
monumental.
itself.
Yeah, definitely. Like again, part 3 is like is kind of rough to get through sometimes, but that like when it's good, it's great, and when you get to the build up and like that
Yeah,
last
when you get to
stretch
the
of
last
episodes,
stretch of part 3, it's
amazing.
really good. It's solid.
Yeah.
great. It's
I
fires.
would
on all
argue like
cylinders.
the last 10 episodes of part 3, second half, is amazing.
All right, and just
Yeah.
like with every other JoJo episode we've been done, let's finish it with a ranking. How do you rank your parts so far, boys? Shinoda or John?
John.
Part 2 is still my absolute favorite part. That is never going to change.
Okay.
Part 3 is pretty good. I think it's better. Part 1 is probably the worst part in my opinion of JoJo's because it's just
It's so short and there's not much to it.
it's rough, dude. It's fucking rough. Like Jonathan's not that funny of a character to follow because he's a gentleman.
He's not a funny guy though.
Yeah.
He's a very, very classic shonen protagonist.
Yeah,
There's nothing very special about him.
Now that part is still very important, all the more.
Yeah.
Now,
And like
But,
as you know,
yeah,
part one,
it's still the
we
weakest.
get bloody stream. So
Yeah.
it's a good song, bro.
And you know what? And you know what? I will defend it. I will defend it. I love Jonathan's character theme. The
classic
Oh
shonen
yeah,
theme.
yeah.
I really like it. I still to this day really like that musical theme that he has.
Alex, rank your parts.
I would say I'm kind of in line with John. 2, then 3, then 1. But 1 and 3 to me are kind of, at least of the first 3, are kind of close together in terms of my ranking.
Okay.
Almost like
Shinoda?
tied for second.
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
How dare
I-
you?
I loved. Don't get me wrong. I loved 2, but like 3 is so much fun. So much love for JoJo is where that came from part 3, including for me. Like, don't get me wrong. I love 1 and 2, but like 3 is where I really fell in love with the whole series and franchise. I was just like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, for me, it's the same as John and Alex. Actually, it is 2, 3, 1. But I'm guessing from the next part forward, we'll start seeing more changes in the ranking as we'll
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
on,
Well,
but
we
it'll
won't
be fun.
We won't see any for John's at the top because, like you said, 2 is his go-to. His number
Yeah.
one.
2 is number
Number 2 is number 1.
That's
Like,
right.
like I won't lie. I won't lie. You know, I'm wearing my biases on my sleeves, bro. Like 4 is my favorite, so I'm super
No,
excited
I
to get to
can
that
I
one.
can admit that 4 and 5 are better than 2 and 3. Doesn't matter. 2 is still my favorite.
But
I-
2
I've
doesn't have
admitted-
Old Man Joseph, John.
That's true.
How could that
but
be?
It has young Joseph.
4 has older man Joseph.
Older man or
Super
Joseph,
old man. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was JoJo Part 3 Stardust Crusaders. I'm glad we got around to this episode. I'm excited to
Finally.
get to Part 4.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It took so long, but I'm glad we did it. And like
We
for
will
me
be
it's always
doing the next few parts. We're going to be doing in a little bit quicker succession.
yeah, for sure. Definitely. But yeah, it's
Hopefully.
always fun to go
Maybe.
back to JoJo. But yeah, any last words, thoughts, something related to Part 3 before we close this one out?
Just go watch JoJo's.
Man, what a whiplash of a journey.
Yeah.
Started out fun and then just whew.
Yeah, it's so stupid and campy, even though there's people dying and stuff in the first half. But then you get to the second half, and it's just like, all of a sudden, it seems like it's not that serious until it becomes serious. It's like, oh, fuck.
You know, one thing we didn't talk about is how at the very end, old man Joseph tries to become a YouTube prankster on his goddamn grandson.
Oh my
Classic
god.
Joseph. Classic
I
Joseph,
completely
bro.
forgot about that.
Brad, he was
Fucking
like,
get
this close to getting fucking beat up.
murdered.
Loved it.
He's like,
like,
no,
I'm
it's a
actually
prank, bro.
Dio."
It's a prank. It's a prank.
I loved it.
Fucking
I love that
asshole.
the minute he got revived, he knew what happened and was like, "Oh, I've got the ultimate prank right now."
It's like looking to the medic. It's like, want to see this shit?
The young Joseph is still in there.
Asshole.
What a great way to end it, though. Like, what a
Yeah.
phenomenal way to end the fight just with a YouTube prank.
All right, it's time to take this last train home, boys. All right. Thank you everybody for dropping in to watch us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you liked what you saw, there's more. We have our TikTok, we have our Discord group. It's everything. Everything is down there in the comments. Also the merch that we have. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, pretty much with that old rambling thing out of the way, I've been your host, Ty, and we will see you all next time. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh no!
Or as they say,
no!
or as they say in part 3, let's hit the road.
Let's hit the road.
Oh
boys.
my god.
Get more memes. Throwing more memes before we're cutting.
No, I'm
We
good.
said all the memes throughout the episode.
Yeah, we said all of them.
There's always time for more memes. That's copyrighted. I
Alright.
can't do that.
Yeah.